If you've ever wondered what gear and software I use and how everything's connected in my home studio here on Studio Live today, in this video, I'm going to take you behind the green curtain and we're going to take a look. Let's go. Hi, my name is Pete and welcome to Studio Live today and this very special presentation because it's been a while since I've taken you behind the scenes of the home studio here, and there have been a few changes in the last couple of years, so I thought I would take you through absolutely everything that we have here in the studio. Now, if you'd like to check out any of the gear that I'm going to show you and talk about in this video, you can check out the links down in the description or just jump over to the gear guide, studiolivetoday.com/gear, because everything that I'm going to show you is down in the gear guide. All right, let's get into it. So this is my view every time I'm live, or if I'm recording a tutorial video, this is pretty much what I see. So we're going to go through all of the stuff we have here, but let's sort of just give you the quick brief overview tour, and then I'll go into each component, why I use it, and what some alternative options are as well. So the whole system is run down here by the Mac Studio. That's the Mac Studio M2 Max. And I bought that last year. And yes, they have just brought out the M4 and the M3 studios, but guess what? I needed a new computer last year. On top of that is my old Mac Mini M1, and that ran the studio for the longest time, for a good 3 years, 4 years in fact, before I upgraded to the M2 Studio. So yes, I've been a Mac guy for the last few years. The monitor here is the LG Ultrafine Ergo. So this is a nice 5K monitor. I did have the studio display on loan from Apple, but it cost a fortune. So when I gave that back, I grabbed this one. This is just an old Asus monitor that I use here as well. You'll see my iPads. I have the iPad Pro M4 and my old 2020 iPad Pro under there. My speakers, we've got the IK Multimedia iLoud micro speakers there, which I show, which IK Multimedia kindly sent to me, and I've been using those and kind of loving those. Have my Apple trackpad and mouse over here to the right. The audio gear, well, I've got the Rodecaster Pro 2, Rode Procaster, Rodecaster Pro 2. You'd think I'd know the name by now, which is the mixer that I use. So you can see there when I turn that up, that is bringing this microphone, which is my Rode Pod mic. So yeah, I'm all Roadhouse these days. But I have used other stuff in the past, and as we go through each component, I'll let you know about that. Up there on a mic stand, or actually it's on a tripod these days, is my my webcam, which is important. That's the Logitech Brio webcam, which I use, and lights. So there's two softbox lights. It's going to do weird stuff to the refresh rate if I have them on the screen too much, but they are the lighting that I have here. And if you've ever wondered how important lighting is, look what happens when I turn it off to my image there. Yeah, so that's what you'd be seeing on a live stream if I didn't have some sort of lighting, and we'll talk about that as we go through. The software I'm showing here, obviously GarageBand down here, and I use Logic Pro as well. I'm using Ecamm Live here. It's one of the streaming platforms I use. I also use StreamYard for some of the shows that I do, and that's of course my YouTube studio, which is the engine room of all of the YouTubingness. Instruments over there in disarray. We won't be talking about those in detail here today. And what you can see over to your left, which I won't show you because it's messy, is a walk-in wardrobe, which is actually a really good place for recording things like vocals. If you ever need your own makeshift vocal booth, you can use something like that. So this is what I see when I'm doing Your Music Live, when I'm doing the happy hour, when I'm doing any shows. This is my view, and the desk is probably the last thing here. More is more when it comes to desk space. So you can see here I've got quite a large desk space, which means I can put MIDI keyboards on here. I can put other devices when I need to. There's plenty of room to move. All right, should we dive in and check out each individual item? Let's do it. Let's start with the engine room. It is the Mac Studio M2. Now, I did go for the M2 Max, not the Ultra, because I wanted a bit of a combination of affordability and power. I kind of I thought it looked really weird to start with, but I kind of like it, and I love the fact that you got these USB-C ports in front. I've often got hard drives or charger cables plugged into there, and of course an SD card as well, which is super handy. The older one on top there. By the way, I've got this. This is a DVD drive, mostly for playing audio CDs. I mean, getting back into my audio CD collection. So you can, of course, use a PC if you're doing live streaming or if you're recording things, and no problem if you do that. I did that for the first 3 years of this channel. It wasn't until 2020 that I bought the Mac Mini, and ever since then I've been using Mac. And one of the main reasons is that I can use Ecamm Live for starters, which is Mac only, and the Mac OS interface is so similar to iOS now, and that's obviously my bread and butter on this channel. It's actually really easy for me to use these days. So that's my main bit of kit there, and this, if that's the main bit, this is the main bit part 2, because this is my iPad. And the vast majority of things I'm demonstrating on the channel is through this iPad. My GarageBand, my Logic Pro, everything else is there. Now, you might be asking, how do I get that up onto the screen so when I'm doing like demonstrations, I can actually have the iPad displaying? Oh, it's messed up the resolution there, but you get the gist. Well, I've actually got an adapter, a dongle. So let's talk about the dongles quickly before we move on to other gear. So Mac, iPad, let's come in here behind the microphone, and we'll move the microphone up actually, and take a quick look at the setup back here, because this is kind of the important stuff. If you wanted to do something like this, you'll need these bits of kit. So this is an HDMI to USB adapter. So this is a very standard one. Look, there's no brand names. They're all made out of the same factory in China, I'm pretty sure. But what that can do is it can convert the HDMI output of my iPad, and you're thinking, hang on, HDMI? My iPad doesn't have HDMI. I'll get to that in a sec. But it converts the output to USB that can then be taken into the Mac, and then that can actually be put onto a live stream. So that's the way I do the live streaming of my iPad. Now, the way that I can get HDMI out is by using something like this. This is the Ugreen dongle. I've done videos on this before. This has both HDMI, but you can also connect up USB devices. So this is how I connect up this, which I realized I didn't talk about. My Steinberg UR22C audio interface is what I use to plug in guitars, microphones, and anything else when I'm using it with this. This, by the way, is the Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. This is what I use when I want to demonstrate something on the Mac, because I use the mixer to record my live audio. But if I'm plugging in guitars and mics, I kind of can't plug them into the same thing that's doing the live streaming mixing. So I need a second audio interface, and that's where that one comes in handy. So that's how things are set up here. Living the dongle life, but you kind of have no option because you don't have any other way of outputting the video and potentially the audio from the iPad. So that is the Mac and the iPad setup there. The next component here, if you want to do live streaming, or if you want to be recording tutorials or not spending a whole bunch of time mixing after the fact, I highly recommend a mixer. Now, you don't need to splurge and get something like the Rodecaster Pro 2. This is definitely overkill for most folks. I used to use a Samson Mixpad, which was great, and then I moved to the Zoom Live Track, which was great, and now I've moved to this, which is great. The benefit of this is that it has a lot of digital options here, so you can actually jump in and change all the settings on the touchscreen there, as opposed to having a whole bunch of dials, and it doesn't take up a lot of desk space. It's very compact in its design. Now, I use it in a very, very simple kind of way. I don't have a lot of difficult needs when it comes to mixers, but I've got a few things I need. Number one is a microphone. So that's where the mic we'll talk about in a moment, and you can hear it's plugged in and coming through the speakers, which is how I often roll. People worry, they think, oh, you can't do that because you're going to get a whole bunch of bleed and feedback. It's not actually that bad because the rejection on this microphone is good. So if I'm doing your music live, you'll notice I don't wear headphones. I just rock out to the music and it all comes through there. It just means that, yes, you will hear a little bit of that. You won't get it perfect. So I do turn off those speakers if I'm just recording, say, a podcast or something that doesn't need that. The other important thing here is I have my guitar, which is always channel 2 here, so that when I'm doing live performances, I can have mic and guitar going on there. And then on this third channel, I actually have the output of my iPad. So when I'm playing things back on the iPad, it actually comes out on this channel. So when I'm doing, say, so like when I was showing off the new sound pack there on GarageBand iPad, I could just have my mic up and then just balance the audio and record all that in. And that just saves me a lot of time. What I used to do is record it separately on a different device, either directly on the iPad or record the audio on an iPhone and then do the screen recording and then have my mic as a separate channel and then have to mix them all together. I tend to basically treat even my tutorials like I'm doing a live stream. So I just mix them on the fly here. The other thing I have here is on channel 5, I have the max audio. So this is really handy. And this is the important part. If you listen to nothing else and you want to do live streaming, especially if you want to live stream or do interviews with someone else, what you need is a mixer with mix minus. What that means is that if I turn this channel up, for instance, and then this channel up, if I'm talking to someone and their audio is coming through the Mac and my audio is going through the Mac as well, it's going to create one of those loops. Have you ever listened to a live stream and you can hear people like looping? It's repeating what they're saying and it sounds like they're in an echo chamber. That's that. Now, previous mixers had a slightly more difficult way of getting mix minus. I'm happy to report that here on the Procaster, you just come in here and you turn on mix minus. Now, it does mean that that audio then won't go back out to my stream. And have I forgotten to turn it back to main mix afterwards and done a Your Music Live and played the first song and it being absolutely silent? Yes, I have. Thanks for asking. So, and I love having faders, being able to pull up and down audio. There's also a mute button here. So again, if you've ever heard me come back from a song on Your Music Live and I'm on mute, it's because I've got that button pressed down when I shouldn't have. So mixer for the weird, it connects up via USB-C. It's really quite simple to use. Well, it's simple to get set up, has a whole bunch of features and options that I simply don't really use. So that's the mixer that we have there. Let's talk microphone. This is the broadcast microphone that I use. Oh, I need to really wash that pop filter. By the way, when I've seen people do sort of studio tours before, they clean the studio within an inch of its life and they have everything looking pristine. That's not how reality is. So I'm making you feel better about your studio by showing you that my studio is kind of a mess too. So I like this Rode pod mic, and I actually also invested in this arm. This Rode arm, it's called the PS1 Plus or something. This has been a game changer because it just, like I've had ones before where the spring is kind of dodgy. This one just gets out of the way when it doesn't, when you don't need it, and comes back when you do. That'll learn me for hanging my headphones. Oh, we didn't talk headphones before either. You can tell I wasn't super planned, showing you my messy floor. Wasn't super planned with this video. I just sort of wanted to go off the cuff. Headphones are important. I talked about the fact that I just use my speakers for a lot of my live shows, but where you need that isolation or I'm doing interviews and the like, yeah, the headphones definitely come into it. And ooh, you can see the dirt there. While we're over here, let's talk mices and trackpads. Just get the microphone out of the way. Again, how nice is it? You can just use that Rode arm to get out of the way. So I use two different devices here. I use this trackpad, which I like for some purposes, but I can't use it for long periods of time. So I also got the Magic Mouse. Now, are these overpriced and unnecessary for the vast majority of users? Yes. I use Logitech for a lot of my other applications and for like my home computers and other things, and they're about a third the price and just as good. But there's something about these with the Mac, not just for aesthetics, because I'm not exactly a looks guy, I'm more of a functional guy. So it's not really for that, but it's just that it connects up like the Bluetooth. So when you turn it on, when you connect it, it just pops straight up. So to give you an example, if I flick the switch on the back of this one, you can see there, trackpad off, and then I flick it on and it says trackpad on, or at least it should when it finds it. It's proving me wrong, isn't it? It's prove me wrong, kids. Prove me wrong. I've also got the Apple keyboard, with the number pad. I always need a number pad. I'm kind of that guy. I did a lot of data entry when I was in the start of my career, and so I can work my way around a number pad. And yeah, running a business, I do have to do a lot of that fun stuff, like, paying taxes and accounting and things like that. So it is worthwhile having that. Let's talk iPads. I have on loan from Apple this iPad Pro M4. Apple have just announced the new iPad Air M3, which I think is the sweet spot these days. I've always said that the Air is really good value, really good bang for buck. This has the Magic Keyboard with it as well. And as I mentioned before, I have my own. My actual last one that I bought for myself was the 2020. So I don't upgrade my gear a lot. I'm lucky enough that I get some of the gear on loan from Apple so that I can show you what it's like and compare the differences. But the actual iPad that I currently own is the 2020 model, not even the M1. So I'm in the market for a new one. The Mac Studio I own and the Mac Mini I own there. And I also kind of need a Mac laptop, but now is not the time to be spending, I don't think. There's some challenges in the economy right now, which is why I wanted to talk about this as well and tell you what you kind of do and what you don't need. Because you know what? If I had that Mac Mini, which is like these days, secondhand, you'd pick that one up for like $300, and like a $200 mixer, like a Yamaha MG series, they're really good mixers, and like a $50 webcam, I'd be able to do live streaming. I'd be fine. Let's talk about the webcam while we're talking webcams. So up the top here, as you can see, precariously mounted on an old. So this is what I mean when I say, look, you don't need all the best and the latest and greatest. Could I get like a nice mount up here and spend all the time and money and effort? Yeah, but I've got this. It's easy enough for me because I can adjust the tilt and pan just using this. You can see it's kind of flimsy there, but it does the job. And it peaks up the top here over the top of the monitor so that when I'm seated in my studio position, it gets a nice view and I can be looking up there and talking to you on live streams. So that's the Logitech Brio. Any of the Logitechs, anything with 1080p or more, is good. 4K cameras are pretty cheap these days, and there's heaps of different brands out there, but Logitech is just always what I've used. Where are we at here? So yeah, I vaguely mentioned, or forgot to mention, and then remembered to mention audio interfaces. I still use this, the Steinberg UI22C. It's called the IO22 something now, but I just still love it. It's rock solid, it never misses a beat, pun intended, and it's just, yeah, it's just seriously like a tank. And the Focusrite Scarlett there, same sort of deal. I can't use the headphone jack on that Focusrite Scarlett because there is a headphone end snapped off in there. Yeah, fun times. Speakers. So actually, let's talk headphones and then speakers. So headphones, I use these. These are the Sennheiser HD280 Pro. They're not an expensive or fancy headphone. They're $100 US pretty much all the time. You can see these have had a cup replacement because I did wear out the cups on my old ones, and a headband replacement as well. So you may need to do that over time. I'm not going to talk headphones here. Basically, if you buy something from Sony, AKG, Audio-Technica, Sennheiser, Yamaha, you're going to be fine. Like, there's so many different brands that all make good headphones. If you're paying at least, I'd say $50 to $60 and getting some headphones. The important thing is, if you're doing live streaming, interviews, recording, closed back, so ones with cups like this that go all the way over your ears are pretty important because that's going to block out a lot of that microphone bleed if you're using a microphone. Yeah, that's my shopping, not shopping trolley. That's my washing trolley. There were baskets there before I removed those, so be thankful. It's a multi-purpose room. I want to show you it, warts and all. So that's the headphones. Speakers-wise, so whilst I'm currently using these IK Multimedia iLoud Micros, they're great, but they're overkill for most folks. I really love the Presonus Eris. You can pick up a pair of Presonus Eris, the 3.5s for about $100, $120, $140, or even the 4.5s for about $150 to $200. They're really, really good. I used to have Rocket 5s, which I used here in the studio. They were overkill too. look, I'm not doing high level mixing and mastering in this room. I do occasionally, I need to get really serious when I'm, say, doing song timbre and I'm mixing and mastering. But for the most part, they're really absolutely just reference monitors. It's just so that I can hear the audio. That being said, when I turn these things up and when I'm listening to music, the quality is great. And I know people are going to be saying they're not at the right height. You should be getting some risers on those Johns, but at least IK have the little stands. So it is pointing. I kind of have the triangle going on. You'll just have to trust me that the triangle is close to where it needs to be, if not perfect. Have to make some sacrifices for the space, though, don't we? So we've talked Macs, we've talked monitors. Let's talk monitors in a little more detail. So I like this one. It's a 32-inch monitor. It's the LG Ultra Fine, and it is fine. And what I love most about this, actually, I'm big into the ergonomics and the accessibility of things. So this is on this wonderful ergo stand, which is super dusty. Wouldn't have noticed if I didn't point it out, probably. But this one connects up via USB-C. You've got additional USB and HDMI and all the ports in the back there. But the ability to adjust both the height, so you can push up and push down. You've got to give it a bit of a push to do it, but it's on a hydraulic lift, so it can go up and down, left, right, rotation, and it just means that I can position it exactly where I need to make sure it's out of the camera range and it's right in the middle of my space. I'm a 2-monitor guy. I have been a dual monitor guy for the longest time. I just like to be able to have a reference monitor off to the side, so when I'm doing things, if I'm doing a Your Music Live, this is where the song plays, and this is where all of the action happens. So this is where I see comments and where I put banners up and control. This is sort of my main screen. And then over here, if I'm recording, this is where I'll put GarageBand for Mac to do a backup recording, or I'll have other things up over here, my emails and other things that are more utilitarian, because this is a very dodgy old, well, it's a 1080p. It's an Asus 1080p monitor from many years ago, whereas this is a nice new LG Ultrafine Ergo, which is, again, not super cheap, but I look at this for up to 10 hours a day, so I wanted something that was nice contrast, nice refresh rate, nice big size, because I'm an old man, and this is what I ended up with, and I like it so much, I went and bought an LG OLED TV for my living room, because I was like, yeah, I'm going to go with it. Should we talk about something that nobody really talks about, and it is lighting. So I mentioned it before that the number one thing I'd say to folks, if you're getting into doing live streaming, or even if you just want to up the quality of your Zoom calls, getting some lights, some sort of lighting, yeah, you see if I zoom in on them, it does a weird refresh rate thing, but if get yourself some lights, the ones I use are soft boxes. They're not brand name again. They're not expensive. I got them from AliExpress. You can get them on Amazon. I'll find the equivalent on Amazon and link them in the description for you. Because, yeah, look, you may not have enough room for big boxes like this, but guess what? I was in Kmart the other day, and for $10, they had those little ring lights that you can just put up. And that's going to be better than nothing. You don't need to be all fancy like John's and have a button that turns your lights off and on. That's how we can do the joke. It's folks like you that make donations to this channel that help keep the lights on. So having some sort of lighting, though, you can go nuts and spend hundreds of dollars on LED lights, or you can pick up a couple of $20 soft boxes or a little $10 ring light. But having some sort of lighting, people go nuts and they buy new webcams and they think that that's going to fix the problem, when really it is just that they're sitting under one sort of hanging incandescent 40-watt bulb. You're just never going to get the quality that you need out of something like that. A little bit more about the connectivity here, as I mentioned, in the back of the mixer here, I've got my mic and guitar. I've got stereo channel, which is what's coming out of my Steinberg. That's how I got that channel 3, which is a stereo channel for my iPad. And then I've got balanced outputs that go out to the speakers there, and that just connects to the Mac via USB-C. So we've basically got the mixer, audio interface, now DVD drive connected in there, as well as the webcam. And the reason that I like the Mac Studio is that it has all the ports. So I don't have to live the dongle life on the Mac Studio, because I can have everything plugged in, because it's got the 4 USB on the back there 4 USB-C and 2 USB-A, which is super handy. So if you're looking to get into this, what are the essentials? What do I think you need? Well, let's just assume you got some sort of computer and you want to do yourselves some live streaming, a live streaming setup. I would look at things in this order. A mixer, because even if you've got the most pristine crystal quality video with great lighting, if your audio sounds crappy, your live stream's going to sound and appear crappy. So a mixer. Now again, you don't have to go with this. You can buy a $100 Samsung mixer or a $200 Yamaha mixer or a $400 Zoom live track that I've used in the past, and they'll all do the same thing. But do look up before you do it, especially if you want to do live streams with other people, look up mix minus. Make sure that your device can do some sort of mix minus, otherwise you'll be living that echo life forever, and you don't want to do that. You want to have a mixer that you can actually utilize. And again, it just makes it easier even if you're just doing recordings. Again, when I'm recording, I use this exact same setup. It's probably worth saying. I use the exact same setup doing my recordings. I record here, I record using Ecamm Live or StreamYard, and I screen record my iPad. And then I just grab usually the face cam from what I record here and the audio that gets recorded along with the video, and then throw that and sync up the playback of the screen recording from the iPad with the face cam, and that's my video. I don't have to do any other mixing and any other effort going into it. So that's the way that I roll there. So even if you're not doing live streaming, a mixer can be super handy. I switched from an audio interface for my live stuff to a mixer about 6 years ago, and haven't looked back. Would not go without a mixer. You will also need a web camera. And again, don't buy the cheapest of the cheap. Don't buy the $10, $20 Amazon webcams. They're going to look really bad and grainy, and you're not going to have a good time. But again, you don't need the Brio, or you don't need the super high-end 4K, 8K cameras. And lighting, please don't do what I didn't do for the first 2 years and look grainy and fiddle with settings. You really don't need to fiddle with a lot of settings to get your video looking crisp and good. You just need some sort of lighting. And again, let's just give you one more look. If we turn it off, look, and again, I've got it set so that it looks good with the lighting, but the difference between having lights on and lights off is kind of, forgive the pun, night and day. Speakers or headphones, start with headphones. And again, you don't need to spend a fortune on those. I like these $100 Sennheiser HD280s. You can get cheaper ones. And speakers, monitor speakers, you can start from as little as $100 with those PreSonus speakers that I recommend as well. And you're off to the races. It really doesn't have to be complicated. And here's the one final piece of advice, because we've talked about gear and connectivity, software. I didn't really talk a lot about Ecamm Live or StreamYard. If there's demand, I'll talk about those more in a future video. But get started. Just do it now. The first live streams I did were terrible. I didn't even release them. I didn't even stream them live to someone. Remember, you may not even know this, in fact. You can stream live to yourself. If you've got a YouTube account, and you can just set it up and you can start streaming to no one. Or you can just practice your streaming to nothing, to nowhere, to unlisted, to private streams, just to get the feel of it. Because you will learn over time how to speak, how to act, how to have everything set up. Your fingers on your mixer will start really just knowing exactly where all your faders are. Sometimes you'll still forget to put yourself off mute, but maybe that's just a me thing. But honestly, the best time to get started with any of this stuff is right now. So please get out there. If you've got questions, if you'd like to ask me questions about my setup, about what I've used over the past, feel free to throw those in the comments of this video. But also remember, you can jive on over to studiolivetoday.com/gear. That will tell you everything I use. Honestly, it's got all of this gear and a whole lot more, because I've left in there the stuff that I've used in the past. I've not just got the gear I've got right now, but I've got like my older Mac, because you could get started with a Mac Mini M1. You don't need this. And I did. I used this up till last year. So if you watched Your Music Live in 21, 22, 23, it was on that machine, and it did a great job. So thank you for watching. Once again, questions down in the section below. And remember, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others. Keep creating, and I'll see you next time here on Studio Live Today. Bye for now.